think the success potential of Novus should be judged by the success of Average Punks?
I could ask the same question to you. Should the success of Novus be judged on the success of Core Team?
Saying that both Average Punks and Novus are in Web3 and Core Team is not says that it shouldn't, right? They shouldn't correlate. Like we've been saying throughout the conversation, building a Web3 brand is very different than building a Web2 brand. Onboarding into Web3 is very different than onboarding into Web2. You know, Core Team has done very well, as you say, in Web2. Your infrastructure is built out, your company operates, you have connections, you've established them, you've taken 20 years to build these things up from your frame of mind as well as your network. In Web3, things move very quickly. 7 months in Web3 is like the difference between $500 million valuation and a $500 valuation. You know, it's insane for some projects. And for other projects, it's a learning curve, which we've seen.
I think the success of Novus should be judged on the success of AVPs. People can look at it in several different ways. You know, have we successfully built the AVP brand? What do you measure as success of AVP brand? Does it still exist? Does it have the infrastructure to exist in 2 years? Absolutely. Is the team going to walk away from the project ever? No. You know, we will always replace the team.
Existence, success.
If you want to build a brand, absolutely. If you start to build a brand and you don't exist in 2 years, what sort of brand have you built?
If you keep funding something from outside of itself, you can keep existing for 500 years. Yep. But are you successful?
Like I said, success comes in steps. First step on any project which has been through any company that's been through terminal is stabilization. Have we stabilized it? Absolutely. Do we have a strategy over the next 12 months to execute a marketing and branding strategy? Yeah. I think it would have been absolutely wrong to try to execute a branding strategy at a time where the community itself was volatile. We've stabilized that. So I've been successfully able to transfer Web 2 skills into Web 3, right? A lot of people think that, you know, coming into Web 3, you've got to trade NFTs to build something or to be successful, you know, or if you want a job in Web 3, you've got to learn completely new skills, like you've got to become a developer or you've got to be an artist. I've just proved, you know, the fact that you don't have to be an artist or a developer to come in this industry.
Right, you've been able to establish that as a consultant to assist in building out infrastructure.
Well, and it's not just that in AVPs.
Like sales tactics.
Well, you could say sales tactics. But I think with AVPs, I think my intentions and opportunism, and everything can be judged with what's happened at the AVPs. You know, we didn't save this community to make money from it. In fact, I've made zero funds, zero profit for the last 9 months from the AVPs. Did we make people money? Yeah, we did make people money. We made people money by saving the money. You know, all of those people that were in AVPs could have lost thousands if the team hadn't taken over. And guessing the way people judge success is, are they making money by being involved in that project?
Not necessarily. I would say presence in the space. I would say being regarded by notable people in the space. I would say demand for the product itself. I would say these are the factors by which we judge success in the NFT space. I would say captivating. I was going to bring this up earlier when you talked about a direct line of communication and how, you know, the community always knows what's going on with the project. And I think that's a bad thing, personally. And I say that because successful projects leave 99.9% of news to speculation.
Absolutely.
And not news. And is that a marketing tactic for Web3?
It's not a marketing tactic for Web3 because Web2 companies do the same. You know, tell me how many Web2 companies spell out what they're going to do for you over the next 3 years?
Well, I mean, there's press releases, there's meetings with investors. There's a lot of different things, right?
Like, give me examples. You know, there isn't. Companies do.
Well, Tesla announced they're releasing the robot. Tesla announced they're, for instance, working on AI. And
but they're actually working on it. It's not a roadmap thing that they're going to work on.
Roadmaps are essentially that, right? We are working on this, but I just feel like in Web3, the imagination and entertainment factor is what really builds a buzz around a brand, you know, and the potential of something is so much more important than the communication of it. You know, as far as building a community, giving them something to talk about, allowing for the name to buzz in the space, allowing for, because we've seen how this market works, right? Like, people, like in every market, people will buy the rumor and sell the news. And the more direct communication of the news there is, the less potential there is for people to have demand around the rumor, you know? And then if the deliverables are exceed the expectations of those people that are building the speculation, then the project has under promised and over delivered. Whereas if you communicate, we're building this, it'll be ready this date, people don't care as much, and like when you talk about implementing a marketing plan over 12 months, the technology that or the roadmap items that you're delivering in 12 months could be so passé that it may not even matter.
See what you're doing here is using very, very project language, right? And using a lot of language that exists in the NFT space over the last 2-3 years, and for some reason the NFT space thinks that it's completely different to every single industry in the world, and it's not. You hear people, influencers, shouting that 90% of projects are going to die in the first 12 months or the first 24 months of existence. How's that different from corporates? How is that different from any corporate industry? And it's probably a similar percentage of companies that are startups. They go bust within the first 12 to 24 months. There's absolutely,
even after
there's no
pumps.
difference.
Agreed.
Right, that Web3, the fact that the people say Web3 moves a lot faster than every other industry, no, absolutely not. Technology is used in every single industry. The reason the Web3 believes that Web3 is faster and it's so much different to all the other industries is because you have so many 16 to 21-year-olds in this industry, right? People that these guys are educated, they're creative, but they still haven't gone through the experience of life and experience what actually happens in the corporate world when you start working. And when you start doing that, you start realizing actually there are one or two key differences between the industries and the way they work, but they are not that far significantly different.
Then why is it that every corporate CEO that comes into the space to either take over a project as a CEO or launch something in the space fails?
This is my opinion. The reason I feel that they fail is because NFTs is the first place, regardless of how big your project is, that your consumers have direct access to the CEO of the company via the community you're building in Discord. That doesn't exist in any other industry. Usually the leaders of a business, the leaders or the CEO, the exec team of a business will very rarely come into direct contact with the actual end user. Whereas in the NFT space, the consumer has direct access, not just to the person who started the project, but to the whole team. This is like saying, that you work for a bank and you know personally that you will have direct access to the person that's involved in actually processing your transaction.
So how does that explain their failure?
Because that's a different mentality. It's like, you were saying opportunism. That's one thing that you probably can get away with a lot more in Web 2, because you can hide behind a corporate infrastructure. Whereas in Web 3, that's very difficult. You can be anonymous for a while, but if you start building something, the consumer knows who you are and they have a direct line of communication directly to you. And that's mentally really difficult to deal with.
It is very true. But when you say that people in Web3 think it's different than Web2, but it's not, and then you say something like that, it's very contradictory.
It is, but I did it also in that say that 90 to 95% of the things that happen in Web3 are similar to what happens in Web2, but there are one or two key differences that are small, but they make a huge difference. And this is one of them. This is very small, but in order to be able to accept something like that, you have to be able to take criticism. And how many CEOs do you know that will take that not CEOs, but how many people in the world do you know that will admit failure? And that's what the NFT world highlights significantly more than any other industry is failures. You get very little time to enjoy your successes, but your failures will be amplified significantly.
There's also such a small pool of people participating in the space. There isn't room for more than one idea at a time. So for instance, one new piece of technology, one monumentous action taken by a team will fill the space until we move on to the next one, which is one of the reasons why people say the space moves so quickly, right? Because an ingenious idea will still impact how we operate in the space on a day-by-day basis. But once another idea has come, people will just stop talking about it and begin taking it for
You just
granted.
highlighted probably the best thing about this industry is the equality of opportunity, which is what I was saying earlier is Web3 levels out the playing field somehow for barriers to entry and for people to start creating. I think I'm a good example of this, right? So when I set up my first business, I was young, right? Thought I knew everything. And I started doing the business and came very close to losing everything that I'd ever had. All because of selfishness, that thinking that I'm the brightest mind in the room because I'm the most creative, I'm the youngest, I've got the most energy. You know, we grow up with these egos. And that's how I was. And I think that is the only negative thing that is in the NFT space at the moment. But it's also the same thing that is creating the opportunity, right? When you create equality of opportunity, you also have to create people that know how to take that opportunity. In core team, we have one of our core values is extreme ownership. Our definition of extreme ownership is you take responsibility for every action that you take. We don't phone people to come to work in the morning. We expect them to come because they're an adult, right? It's what they have to do. We don't, all our team works from home, so we don't phone them every hour to check what they're doing, or we don't go into systems and check. We have reporting in place with the team where we talk in certain times of the day or certain times of the week, where we all have discussions of what we've done during the week. Asking people to take ownership is one thing. Having people that know how to take ownership is a completely other thing, because, you know, it's been drummed into our psychology and our mind from the time we go to school that you have to do things by a certain time. You have to, the bell rings, you move on to your next lesson, you go on to lunch, you have a certain amount of time for lunch, it's home time, and then you go to corporate world and the same thing happens again. You know, you wake up in the morning, you got to go to work by a certain time, and you're told, and if you're not working at that work by a certain time, there's someone there to point it at you. You know, if you haven't done your work, but, you know, the certain amount of work by lunchtime, there's people there. You know, you're in an office environment, people are constantly cracking the whip to make you do things. So then all of a sudden to go to an environment where you have to take ownership and you're responsible for your own action, because no one is going to phone you to say, why haven't you done this amount of work by now? It's up to you to justify that. It's up to you to manage your time. It's not easy. We had to create a part of our training course specifically to help people learn this new environment that they're going to come into. And that's the same with NFTs. It's one thing about creating a platform and opportunities on a large scale, but it's also then to show young people that, give them some support and infrastructure to say, okay, if you're going to take advantage of this opportunity, then what you need to do is do it properly. You know, create something that actually will last you a lifetime than is going to go away in 6 months or 12 months. You're going to spend all your money and then you're going to be back in the same place or even worse off. Because let's face it, that's what happens to quite a lot of people in the NFT space, right? They come in, they get excited, they do well for 5-6 months, and then 7 months later, they've blown all their money and they pretty much have nothing to show for it.
This is true.
In a long-winded way, did I answer your question in any way at all, or did I just go off on a tangent?
Maybe a little bit. We don't judge. I think you've answered some of your understanding of the Web3 space. I do think that this will be a very different project than AVP.
It's completely different.
Marketing
It's
AVP. It is completely different. It definitely completely different. But there is something to be said for having an understanding of launching an NFT project in order to assist Web2 companies to come in and launch their NFT projects.
I think we use the word project, and that's one of the things that I want to encourage our community to do, is stop thinking projects. Start thinking brands and companies.
But you can't become a brand and a company until you are. In the meantime, you're a project. The project is like if I build a Lego vehicle with my son. It's a project until it's complete. Do you know what I mean? My E46 is beautiful, ready, done. I call that a car. My E36 is a project until I can get in and turn on the keys and
So let me put your mind at ease and tell you why you shouldn't view Novus as a project and you should view it as a company. Number one is the fact that it's already registered and is a registered corporate. Number two is that we have already put together business plans for 2 separate businesses. Like I said, and then we want to build a company that has multiple revenue streams. So we're going to transfer as many of our Web 2 skills into Web 3 as possible. If you look at what we've got in core team in Web 2, every single one of the services we offer with Core Team can actually be replicated in Web3 to be delivered specifically for companies in Web3. And the revenue stream from those is going to start far before we even go to mint our pass in January, February next year.